We don't mess around here. I go live when I say I'm going live. Doesn't mean I'm not going to push back the start time. That's not what I'm saying at all. But doesn't mean that I'm going to mess around. How's everyone doing today? If you are watching, this is what we're doing on this channel now. If this is your first time here, or for whatever reason you have never seen my face or heard my voice of any kind, I am Tegan, and I'm not going to give you my last name, but this is Rush the Field. Something that I've been working a lot towards. I am a recent college graduate, not to pat my own back, but yeah. And I love talking about sports. I've been on Player's Choice Gridiron, a bunch of different things. I have a TikTok channel that is just my first and last name, Tegan Randolph. I don't know why I said I wouldn't give you my last name when it's in literally all my socials, maybe just to get you to go look at it. I'm going to put these papers down. This is a college football show. I love talking about college football. It's probably my first love when it comes to sports. This is something that I've wanted to try to do for a very long time. I hope one day I get paid to talk about this, but in reality, that's not the root of what this show is going to be for me. This show, in all reality, is something that I want to do regardless of what my life is outside of this camera. I want to be able to feel like I can talk about this and build a community with people. And I understand you hear that with a lot of people when it comes to building that community, building this group of people that you can interact with. But I do truly mean that when I say that if you are checking this out for the first time, or you're looking back on this video when it's uploaded to YouTube, or you catch me on a TikTok clip, I truly do mean sub or click whatever button, or don't, just have me in your recommended feed and check it out. Feel free to always leave a comment, because I promise, like, I will always try to go out of my way to respond, regardless of how little. If it's in your eyes you feel that it's insignificant, and y'all better get used to my the stutter, because it's very much gonna continue to happen for a long time as I try to get back to being used to talking in front of a camera and all these different things. I'm still in a scruffed setup right now, but that's not what this is all about. This is putting something out there that I have been wanting to do for a long time, and not overthinking things, and taking an opportunity that's sitting right in front of me and not just waiting for the right moment, because the right moment is the one that you decide to take that jump and take that leap. And for me, this is what I want to do. I want this to be a college football podcast. I want guests to be on. If you want to, I can bring you up and we can talk about college football and your opinions. What I really need is headphones so I can really hear what people are saying without an echo. But right now it's just me and you talking. So I will say, for the first topic, first thing I want to talk about is actually not about college football. It is about college football, but it's not what is the actual game on the field. This is not what you are going to see. This is for NCAA 14 and beyond, specifically the beyond part, because there has been breaking news that a boycott has happened. Specifically, when we're talking about the boycott, it's with the, I can't really think of the exact company. I didn't write it down. That's on me. To keep it brief, you have college football players who feel that they are being not compensated enough for their name, image, and likeness for the college football game. And it is not black and white. This is very much as blurry as it can get when we're talking about college sports, is what is going on with the video game scene. And you may feel like it's insignificant, but to the diehard college football fans that grew up playing these games, at least for me, I hold these games near and dear to my heart. These are some of the most treasured moments I've had playing video games growing up, because I love sports games, and Madden was always seen a tier below what NCAA brought to the table. And truly, I felt like this game had a lot of potential to be really fun. So to give you all the context, because I'm not trying to paint a picture that you should be angry at these players for feeling like they're not being compensated enough. The number that has been thrown out is $500 per player to sign off their name, image, and likeness so that they can be in the game. And to be clear, for people that did not play the games because it was back in 2014, it used to be you had a player, say, for example, it was Drake May. It did not say Drake May in the game unless you downloaded a roster. It did not say Drake May on the back of the jersey. It said quarterback, number 10. And it was everything that you could ask for when it comes to North Carolina apparel because they own their own name, image, and likeness and bought into the game and signed off their contract. Now it gets a little bit more it's tough to really describe what's going on without trying to paint it one way or another, because it's much more difficult than saying 2K trying to sign Charles Barkley. If you've never played 2K before, Charles Barkley has not been in the game since he was out of the league. Or the NFL. The NFLPA will send a letter out saying, would you like to have your name in the Madden NFL games? And we'll send you a check. This is where it gets tough because from the way that the media tries to paint it out, it's not a 1-for-1 by any metric, because you can't grab Madden and try to say, okay, we're going to grab Madden. These players get paid $17,000 to sign off their name for the next Madden, and say, well, college players are only getting $500. That's a drastic 16. I apologize, that was bad. $16,500 difference. That's a steep difference. And on paper, that looks bad. I completely get that. But with that being said, the player base is much, much wider than 32 NFL teams with their rosters and practice players and all that stuff. We're talking about 120 FBS schools, all with their own rosters, all like everything. And now we're basically multiplying it by 4. If we want to continue to keep the simple math, we're multiplying it by 4. And I guess you could say you're trying to pay each player $2,000. But because so many of the numbers are hidden in the extra fees, how many EA is paying their own employees, like things like that. There's so many different details of how much EA can budget out for college players. And then you have the coin where, yes, you have the boycott, where EA has also come out in recent weeks saying that they're still going to make the game. I understand that aspect. And because NIL is so new, you may feel like it's 10 years old at this point with how much people are talking about it, but it's still very much in its early toddler phase. We don't know what to do with it right now because it's not like the NFL. You don't have an NFLPA. You do not have an organization. You do have an organization, and that's the one that's boycotting the game, but you don't have a centralized organization to protect the players, because that would become the privatization of college football. And that's for another segment in this show. I don't even want to get into that right now because I want to keep it at the video game. But the privatization of college football is a very real thing. And I'll get into it in the next topic, because let's get through some of the quotes that have been said about this game, because it's been obviously well documented. For example, we've had a running back, Devin Neal, out of Kansas, says that $500 feels fair. I can't comment on this, as I'm not going to bring my own opinion to the table because I'm not a college football player. I don't know what my name, image, and likeness feels right for this game. I just came out of college, and sure, I would love to have $500, but what would Caleb Williams feel as if giving up his name, image, and likeness for $500 versus the backup cornerback at Colorado State? So it's a flat rate across the field, and then things get really interesting because you go player to player, and they're each going to have a different opinion on this. Well, we could talk about Jaden Daniels, the Kansas quarterback. He could see a holdout happening. We've also seen Mike Wright come out saying, I don't care if it's $20, just put me in the damn game. You see the difference and contrast between the two players and how they're going to value themselves for a video game that is one of the most hyped sports video games in recent memory, because how treasured the previous game was. I mean, there is a fair argument for people to have where NCAA 14 is potentially the greatest football game they've ever seen, right there with Madden 04 and 2K5. That's not a ridiculous statement to be had. Then we have Valencia. I'm going to butcher his name, and I'm early enough in my media career where I can truly butcher someone's name. Falcinelli. We'll take it. We'll take it here. I'm still working on my pronunciation. All current players should boycott this deal. It is an opt-in deal, and they should not opt into it. It is a ridiculously low amount of money. Given the context and the hype that surrounds this game, when we first heard the number, we're like, all right, that's low. Let's go figure it out if it is low. And started talking to NFL guys, talked to some of my friends, and some players who are still in the NFL. So what are the NFL players getting paid for Madden? And we were given numbers from 2019, and it was disclosed that they got, I think, about $17,000. And then a current NFL player told me it was a check for $28,000. That's a slam of the paper kind of moment. It's a substantial difference to $500, but it's also a way, way larger player base. So what is the middle ground if you even get EA to want to get to a middle ground? Because they may feel that 500 is more than fair. They feel like they used to run on a system where they didn't have to pay these players. This was just get the game and get the schools to sign off. And now you don't have to worry about not only the schools, but you have to worry about the players and whether or not you get Caleb Williams, Drake May, Quinn Ewers, and Brock Bowers, whether or not they want to be actually in the game. And then you have to dodge bullets if you try to even kind of get around that. We might just be back in the same spot that we were in with the O'Bannon case. So this whole thing gets so messy that you kind of just sit here and you're like, does this even end up happening? EA says it's going to happen, but EA says a lot of things, let's be clear. So do we really think that this NCAA game is going to happen? Not only because of this boycott, but like this might just be step one for multiple organizations, because we don't have a centralized organization to protect players. We have coalitions that have been brand new. I mean, these are toddlers in of themselves. So what do our expectations are supposed to be at this point? I have really no clue, but it's a future that we kind of have to accept. That's my first tangent. You know, could have gone worse. I've come to realize that my beard is way more red on camera with this light. I'm gonna take a moment to breathe because this is so like, I kind of decided to do this today. Like I said, take that jump, take that leap. Volume 1's not supposed to be good. Episode 1's not supposed to be good. I'm in my house. There's no studio. I don't have, you could hear an echo right now and I wouldn't know. And truly trying to figure things out. And speaking of a mess, truly a mess. Let's talk about conference realignment. Conference realignment is something that has kind of gotten, not overblown, but almost to a point where we're about to hit the next wave. I don't know if college football fans have been able to grasp the reality of what the next step is for conference realignment. And it goes with what I say about privatization of college football. where it is a very real reality that could come to fruition. Because the Pac-12, ACC, and Big 12 are all looking to not be the odd man out. It has become a game of chicken between these three conferences because the Big Ten's already set up. They got USC and UCLA. They could easily add from those schools, and it wouldn't surprise me if they do, if they just kind of take over those other conferences. But with the other three kind of being sat there and being told, hey, we're going to pick and choose the best ones from y'all's group, and then you guys are going to have to kind of figure it out. I think we're at that point where they're trying to figure it out. You have the Pac-12 doesn't really know what their TV deal is right now, even though they just lost USC and UCLA. Oregon and Washington are both looking to leave. You have the ACC, who you have Clemson, FSU, hell, even North Carolina, Miami. They may be looking to move. I know for a fact probably Clemson and FSU could look to move to the SEC. And then we look at the Big 12, and they just lost Texas and Oklahoma. And they added a bunch of schools from the American Conference and plenty of other places. Problem being, you lost Texas and Oklahoma. Those are massive losses. So these three conferences are now being put into a position, and there's rumblings. Don't get me wrong. You can go find them of who's going where. Things are being said. Do not believe everything that you read. Don't even believe what I'm telling you, because no one truly knows what's going on, because this is where the suits come in. The fancy, crisp Italian suits sit at a table and try to figure out things and not really look from the lens of a college football fan, because we see that with one of the biggest disgraces of college football, which is playing out of like rivalry stadiums. The best example is if they move the Texas OU game to Jerry's World, like, though that should not happen. Like, or playing the national title game because you don't want to compete with the NFL. Those kind of suits decisions that are out of our power, that we don't have influence on. They're going to sit at a table and try to decide, are we about to become a Power 3 conference kind of a sport, or a Power 4 conference? It's not going to be a Power 5 anymore. I don't think it will be a Power 5. And I think it won't be a Power 5 for long, because just as quickly as playoff expansion snuck up on a lot of us, just as quickly will be the adjustment to seeing how the playoff goes for right now. Because we have the last year of the 4-team coming up, which I'm excited about. I'm very excited about this. 12-team playoff. And if you don't know the rules, a quick gist: 6 conference champs, 6 highest ranked conference champs, which you get the Power 5, and then you get a group of 5. And then you have 6 at-large bids, 6 highest ranked. You have that for 2 years. After those 2 years, what is the college football playoff going to look like? I don't think it's going to be 6 conference champs anymore. It would really surprise me. And quick side note, relegation should be a thing in college football, but that's just a completely different topic for probably next episode. But with that being said, conference realignment needs to become a thing. I really think that it's going to happen, because once you made the move for USC and UCLA and Texas and Oklahoma, it's almost forced its hand, where you've really starved these other conferences to make a move. I will even just go through them all. Just once again, you have Pac-12, Oregon, Stanford, Utah, Colorado. And honestly, they could shift to different conferences. When I say who is going to be the odd man out, is there a world where those 4 teams from the Pac-12 go to the Big 12, and then the Big 12 is back up to relevance? Is there a world where Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Texas Tech go to the ACC or the Pac-12? And I think the scary thought is one of the remaining big name schools that have stakes in these conversations, if they go to the Big 10 or SEC. not only that, you start a conversation of if they start mixing and matching between the three of them or some of the group of five teams like SMU, San Diego State, and others, and UConn, what world do we get into where the ACC is just left out? And then the real aspect I want to get to, and one of the most interesting parts of this, is the TV deals, because money is the key to all of this. If you get the best TV deal, this is why Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC. This is why USC and UCLA are in the Big Ten. Money. And it's the TV deals that are at the root of this. It's not because they want to go play harder competition. No, that's never the reason why they leave. It's always going to be money. And as a college football fan, that's the reality, because it is not a privatized sport. These are colleges we're talking about. These are public institutions, and college football, these teams are about to be treated as if they're businesses. And it gets really interesting. And the reason why I say the relegation thing, by the way, this is going to be a quick episode. I just want, because I got a lot of things to do, but I wanted to come on here for 30, 45 minutes. Is relegation in Europe is one of the biggest things I think is missing in North America. I saw a TikTok of one of my favorite sports guys basically promoting this, and I'm advocating for it. And I'm taking the next step of it should specifically be in college football. He made a mention of it on a podcast, but it should, because I think college football, for the amount of money that it brings in, should be treated separately comparative to the rest, because I think that's just how massive it is. I don't know how else to put this, but relegation should be in conversations. The NBA was the first to kind of dabble in it, and I think the NBA would be really fun because it would get rid of the lottery or the tanking aspect. But I think it should be adopted in a lot more of the North American sports. Elite 11. Let's get into some recruiting. Let's go. Let's talk about a more lighthearted, because we've talked about NCAA might not even happen. We've talked about the privatization of college football. These are boring topics so far. They'll make great TikToks. These will make some great TikToks talking about conference realignment. But I do want to get my opinion out there because it's a part of the sport. And for about a minute, before I get into the next topic and talk about recruiting and Elite 11 and quarterbacks and flips and all that stuff, I'm going to turn off my screen for about a minute or so. Ryan Mallett, former Arkansas, former Patriots quarterback, passed away in Florida the past couple days. I am praying for his family, praying for everyone that he affected in his life and made an impact. Truly, I have nothing else other than to say rest in peace. And I just want to take a moment of silence. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to ramble. God rest his soul, and I hope his family is doing okay. All righty. So, before I talk about Elite 11 notes and things that I read up on, I did see officially 4-star interior defensive lineman Daniel Cruz has committed to the University of Texas. He says, I know Texas is coming back and these next couple years are going to be special. Even Arch Manning hit me up and told me we've got a special few years ahead of us, and I'm excited for that. Okay. Texas is starting to heat up on the trail. They just got a major commitment, 4-star. Congratulations to Texas. I'll talk about summer recruiting here in a bit. Because I got some thoughts on the narrative specifically around summer recruiting and how people try to tell me, oh, blah, blah, blah is going to flip because he committed in June. That's not how this works. It's not how recruiting works. But Dylan Raiola is as advertised. Doesn't surprise anybody. This dude's been compared to Patrick Mahomes. This dude's probably going to be the best quarterback since Caleb Williams. Once Caleb Williams leaves, it's going to be the Dylan Raiola show. This dude makes some arm throws that you aren't going to see for a long time. He has arm angles that you aren't going to see for a long time, and he makes it look easy. He actually moved to Georgia for his final season, and if you want to look at how many times that kid has moved high schools, I hope he has a glowing personality to make some friends consistently. And if so, it's going to help Kirby Smart, because Kirby Smart is right in his backyard now with so happens to be a bunch of 5-star teammates. How lucky is Kirby Smart to have not only Dylan Raiola move to Georgia, but also have a bunch of 5-star teammates to go help him out? Because if you actually look into the history of the past couple of years, Kirby Smart hasn't been recruiting at an elite level at Georgia. He's been recruiting at a solid level. And when I say at Georgia, I specifically, what's up, Trent? What's up, man? I'm not speaking on their recruiting class as a total. Obviously, Georgia is recruiting at an elite level, a 1% level. I'm not saying anything outside of that. But if you look specifically in the state of Georgia, Alabama, and many other schools have been able to pull athletes out of their own backyard. Dylan Raiola is going to try to change that. You could talk about how many times he's changed high schools. That is a major deal. To be able to go to Buford, he's going to be able to be teammates with guys. He's going to be able to play guys and have contact and be in their backyards to talk to them. And that is going to be major for this upcoming recruiting class. In my bold prediction, when we're talking about Georgia in this recruiting class, they might push A&M's 22 class rating. They might push it a little bit. It would not surprise me. It might even pass Alabama's last year. I think that there is a solid chance that if Georgia goes in three-peats, the wave of recruits, especially in the Georgia area, let alone nationally, it's going to be very scary times if y'all let Kirby Smart win 3 in a row. And their schedule is going to allow for it, with their biggest test probably being Hugh Freeze and Auburn, or Tennessee with Joe Milton, and then whoever they face out of the West. And even then, if they go undefeated in the regular season and lose to whoever wins in the West, they will still have a chance in the playoff most likely. Next up, Caleb Williams is good, surprising no one. He was a counselor at the Elite 11 camp. Surprise, surprise, number 1 overall pick. Will Hammond. I want to shout out Will Hammond. He might not ever see this. Will Hammond is a kid that's going to Texas Tech. I believe he's a 3, borderline 4-star. And I saw one clip of this man. He said his favorite side hustle and hobby is cutting grass. And that is so Texas Tech to a T. It's almost too perfect that I had to be a fan. I think Will Hammond, once he gets to the college level, if he gets a starting role, I'm going to be rooting for the guy. I'm going to slam his over on passing yards. I don't know. And he also performed really well against competition. Julian Sand, shout out to Julian Sand. He's a potential 5-star about to happen. He won the Elite 11 in the camp. He was the best quarterback there. He got the award to show it, and he showed a lot of maturity. He is committed to the University of Alabama. And I want to talk about two quarterbacks that were Texas A&M targets and Clemson targets, and really interesting quarterbacks to talk about. DJ Lagway, 5-star quarterback. He also plays baseball. He is committed to the University of Florida. And then Aaron Noland, lefty quarterback, going to the Ohio State Buckeyes. They kind of had ups and downs this weekend, some really good highs, some really rough lows. I still think they're fantastic quarterbacks. I'm not basing my analysis on high school quarterbacks at Elite 11 camps. I think genuinely Elite 11 camps is where you network. It's where you get your rankings to go a little bit higher. You be able to meet with scouts and you get to showcase your talent. But once you put the pads on, it's a completely different story. Both of these guys are going to be really interesting recruits once we get to December. I'm not one to predict a flip, but if the wheels really fall off at Florida and the wheels fall off at Ohio State, these guys are going to get recruited and hammered. Pause. These guys are going to be recruited like crazy. They already are, but they are going to have their phones be blowing up every hour of every day, because both programs could really have boom or bust years. Florida, if they win over 6 games, they're going to be fine. They're going to give Billy Napier, who has been scorching hot on the trailer, one more chance. And I did not mean to say trailer. I meant to say trail. Ohio State, if they lose to Michigan and that defense does not look improved, I think they're going to be okay. I think they might be my national title pick. It's not August. I'm not making predictions here. They might be my national title pick, but they could fall off really easily. If they lose to Michigan for a third time, if they lose to Penn State, Ryan Day's out the door, Brian Hartline might not stay. Things get really, really murky with Ohio State, and these are two super talented guys that I have very high grades on. I think Lagway could be potentially the best quarterback in his class, and I think Aaron Noland's going to be damn good. Now, I did just say best quarterback in the class, and he's in the same class as a guy that I mentioned before, Dylan Raiola, but to each their own. It's projections, and there's no guarantees in college football. No matter what your ranking or rating is, you got to get on the field. You got to be able to play some ball. I can only project so much for these guys, but they showed a lot of maturity, as you see with high schoolers. As we get farther and farther into NIL and they meet with more agents and guys, they show a lot more maturity, and as if they are being socially trained to give quarterback responses, and they are being taught from as soon as they get in front of a microphone to give those basic quarterback responses and to sound like the generic quarterback. Now, obviously, a lot of them have personality. I'm not saying they're all robots, but you can tell there's a difference because they know that they can potentially get a bigger collective bag if they show professionalism and they don't talk out of their gourd. They can be confident, but you can kind of watch it in these interviews. But a lot of these kids are remarkable. They're doing incredible things. And the Elite 11 camp was really fun to follow and get invested into. But during that, or slightly after, we had something interesting. In the words of the Pate State Freights, a paper popper. Austin Simmons, I made a video on it, and you might get this clip on TikTok again. Austin Simmons is a 4-star recruit for the class of 2025. Not anymore. He is the class of 2023, which is big news. He was going to enroll in the summer for the Florida Gators. The Florida Gators are in a prime position to try to get another quarterback. Graham Mertz is a guy. He is a quarterback on the roster. Former 5-star quarterback, let me be clear. And would need a Bo Nix level resurgence to make the memes not as funny. Nothing could beat anything than Bo Nix memes, but to each their own. Florida didn't get their guy. Florida did not get Austin Simmons. because after the news that he was reclassifying to 2023, the class that will be on the field as true freshmen this year, he flips to Ole Miss. And you might ask yourself, if you follow the transfer portal like I do, or you don't, this is double paper popping level interesting to me. I need to get better adjectives. So, Ole Miss's quarterback room. 5-star Walker Howard transferred from Louisiana State University. Former 4-star, coming out of the transfer portal, he was a 3-star. Because they give you different rankings if you're coming out of high school or if you're coming into the transfer portal. But Spencer Sanders, very seasoned veteran coming out of Oklahoma State. I thought he could potentially start. But with this QB room, I don't know where he lands because they still have their starter from last year. You would have thought that Matt Corral went to the NFL this year. Nope. He left last year, and their starter was Jackson Dart, also a 4-star transfer from University of Southern California. And then obviously you have 4-star Austin Simmons at 17 years old. Now, Austin Simmons might not see the field this year. That is fine. What confuses me is it's not like Jackson Dart, Spencer Sanders are super, super young or old. I will say that Spencer Sanders, I believe, has one more year left, and Jackson Dart, if he doesn't get NFL hype this year, which I assume he's the starter, but he might not be the starter, would be gone after this year. And then Walker Howard is a redshirt freshman. Walker Howard, unless he is terrible, it gets really interesting. Like, if he's good, he's a redshirt freshman, and he plays not this year, but next year, where does that leave a guy like Austin Simmons? It almost makes me think. I'm not, this is not a tinfoil hat. Is Austin Simmons going to Ole Miss to A, test the waters of his talent? The dude's super smart, 5.34 GPA. There was some controversy with Rico Knows on TikTok. I'm not getting into that. But on paper, kid is smart, kid is talented. Can he put that all together in a short amount of time to impress Lane Kiffin to get the starting spot? Because rumor has it he has some Tua in him. Or is he trying to get into a college level locker room and training facility, work on his craft, work in the dark, work in silence, and then transfer out and go basically bet on himself at another program as if he left for class of 25? I'm not conspiracy theorist over here. I'm not doing it. I'm just from Texas. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But it adds up. It adds up. And when we do look at their schedule, I don't want to pull it up on screen. I don't got all the fancy gimmicks yet. They play Tulane away. Tulane's going to be really good this year, or projected to be good. LSU's schedule's brutal, man. Not LSU. Ole Miss's schedule is brutal. It's disgustingly brutal. I don't like it. With Ole Miss's quarterback room and talent and Quinshaw Judge. That was bad. With Ole Miss's quarterback room and Quinshaw Judkins, what is their aspect on the defense going to look like, let alone their offense, because they have 4 quarterbacks that could potentially play. And not only that, you are starting your conference play in 2023 with at Bama, LSU, Arkansas, you get your bye week, and then at Auburn, with also playing Texas A&M, at Georgia, at Mississippi State for the Egg Bowl, which is obviously a rivalry game. I don't know what to expect with Ole Miss this year. They could be victims of a brutal schedule. Brutal. I think they lose to Bama. I think they lose to Georgia. Now, it's not prediction season. I'm not predicting the record right now. This is off of gut. I'm not looking at production or anything yet. You will get that episode earlier, but I think you lose to LSU, you lose to at Bama, you lose to at Georgia, and out of Arkansas, Auburn, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State, you got 3 losses, so you're already at 9-3. These 4 games, plus Tulane, I'm not putting Tulane in there. I'm respecting Tulane, but I think Ole Miss would get that done. Do you get to 5 losses? Is 2-2 between Arkansas, at Auburn, A&M, at Mississippi State that crazy? And going 3-1, you end up 8-4. And then where was the aspect? What are you going into this season? Because are you really expecting to not only go 4-0 against those teams, but to go 2-1 against Alabama, LSU, Georgia? I don't know, man. It's a brutal schedule. But good job by Lane Kiffin. The only credit I'll try to give him. I'm not a big Lane Kiffin guy. But Florida did lose their guy, and yet they bounced back with a massive recruiting weekend. They got a couple 4 to 5 stars. They got a bunch of things. It could be a big year for them if they are patient with Billy Napier. Florida has the resources to be a dominant program again. It's whether or not they want to take the route that Florida State took. This year's going to be rough, and potentially next year is going to be just as difficult with that schedule. They got screwed in 2024. Are they willing to be patient enough for Billy Napier? Because damn it, if he's a good recruiter and the kids seem to really like him and they are buying in to bringing Florida back. And as a Florida fan, if you are a Florida fan, I don't know how you can't be kind of excited, because you had a coach that refused to recruit before this. And then you had a coach in Will Muschamp. It hasn't been a great track record since Urban Meyer. You had some really good teams. You had Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask. That was fun. And then you had a shoe be thrown that ruined your season. Not to mention a trip to Kyle Field that was just as atrocious. I don't know, man. What is your line set before you really push Billy Napier? If he wins 3 games this year, because their line is set 5.5. A lot of people are like, oh, it's going to go over. It's easy. What if it doesn't? What if it goes way under? Do you send Billy Napier off and potentially lose those recruits? If not, who are you bringing in? Because you start the year with Utah, and it's still that same SEC East schedule before it gets really difficult next year. I think they take the Florida State route. They're patient, bring in some transfers, have a really good third year, and set yourself up for 2025. Kind of have to look ahead. I know college football fans don't like doing that. They don't like doing that. Next thing, and for the last part of the show, I know we've been all over the place. I know I've stuttered. This is episode volume 1. I'm just here for fun. We're going to have guests. We're going to have people coming on. We're going to have people talking in chat. You have to start somewhere. But this will be for TikTok clips. Our very first Discord Player's Choice College Football Hot Take is from my man Rooster. It's a Florida prediction. Florida is going to go 5-7. They're going to be the next A&M and Texas without any expectations because their line is set at 5.5. That's not the hot take. That's not where it gets spicy because their line is set at 5.5. He's going to parlay this, in the words of Josh Pate, he's going to parlay it with firing Billy Napier after he loses DJ Lagway to Clemson. I don't know what Rooster was seeing in his crystal ball here. He was looking into his crystal ball and he said, DJ Lagway, he's a Clemson Tiger. Billy Napier, fired. We're going 5-7. But he already got a prediction right. I have it right here. We're losing a 4-star quarterback to Ole Miss. I did these way before Austin Simmons. That's your 4-star quarterback who was no miss. He already has a leg in. He just has to hit the 5-7, the coach being fired, and has to get DJ Lagway to go to Clemson. Clemson is in that race, and so is A&M. If things really fall off, I said it before, earlier into the show, that DJ Lagway is going to be recruited really hard by Clemson and Texas A&M. Don't be surprised if things get really messy, and go to Rooster. I'm going to rate this, because it's a parlay, a 9 on the craziness scale. Wheels haven't completely fallen off yet, because you started off with the plus 120 to go 5 wins, but the specifications of the other ones makes it really difficult. Next thing, we got Coach Mark. Coach Mark, love you, man. But saying Joe Milton is going to break Joe Burrow's records. It just says record. So I'm not even going to try to put this on him and say all of his records, but even a record by Joe Burrow being broken by Joe Milton, I'm putting this at a 10. I like Joe Milton. I don't love Tennessee going into this season. I don't love their schedule. I don't know if they have the facility to beat Georgia, even if it's in Neyland. I don't know. I'm putting this at a 10 because I've fallen for the Joe Milton hype. I've seen the deep throws. I fell for it with Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to fall for it for Quinn Ewers. I'm definitely not going to fall for it for Joe Milton. I'm shaking my head because it's just blasphemy. And last but certainly not least, man, we just got to talk about Alabama to finish the show. DJ, Alabama is going undefeated in winning the national championship. Now, it doesn't say against who, but you did parlay it. We do have another parlay here. Marvin Harrison Jr. to win the Heisman. I don't have the odds in front of me. I don't have a producer, Jesse. I don't have anybody around me to pull up the odds, but a wide receiver, it's going to be pretty high odds, plus 10,000 maybe. I'm putting this at an 8. If Ohio State really does what they do every year, Marvin Harrison has the potential to be the best one to come out of Ohio State. And he could probably win the Heisman with, if it's solely on his shoulders and Abuka gets injured or has a down year, it wouldn't surprise me. And Alabama going undefeated might be a hot take to some people. Not to me. I've learned my lesson. Doubting Nick Saban, doubting the recruiting classes that he has brought in, doubting the talent that is on this roster before the recruiting classes. I understand there's questions about quarterback. There's questions with Ohio State. There's questions about Georgia. But at some point, you got to realize there's enough talent that we kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt. If you want to question Ohio State's offensive line, if you want to question the secondary with Georgia, if you want to question the wide receiver room with Alabama, fine. But we've seen them work with a walk-on quarterback. We've seen Ohio State produce first-round quarterback after first-round quarterback. We've seen Alabama win with an A.J. McCarron all the way to a Tua Tagovailoa. The star power at quarterback tends to not matter at those schools. It could be the difference of them winning the national title, and he said that they're going to win the national title and go undefeated and go, was it 16-0? I'm going to rate it an 8. It's not out of the realm of possibility. And with that being said, that's the first show. That's 50 minutes. It's going to go longer because once I'm talking with someone, I get into arguments. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Welcome to Rush the Field. We out. Let's do this.